The film Cart, released in the fall of 2014, is a South Korean drama and social critique centered around economic issues in the country and is largely based upon a true story. The film was directed by Bo Ji Young and stars actors Young Jung Ah, Moon Jung Ee, and Do Young Soo. Following its release, the film became critically acclaimed and took home awards from the likes of the Korean Association of Film Critics, the Baeksang Arts Awards, Women in Film Korea Awards, and received nominations from many more. Synopsis. In the beginning, we are introduced to Sun Hee, who serves as the main character throughout the duration of the film. She works as a diligent cashier within a large corporate owned supermarket, and after working long hours for a number of years, seems to be receiving a promotion into becoming a regular employee who holds managerial status. Not long after her apparent promotion, much of the supermarket staff come to find that they're set to be dismissed from their jobs as a result of corporate officials not willing to fulfill the agreement of their contracts. Sun Hee discovers this includes her, and now with no job, she has no way of supporting herself and her children. Recognizing that the reason for their employment termination was unjust, those who were laid off, largely consisting of women, decided to band together to form a union. Knowing that by joining this union, Sun Hee permanently jeopardizes her ability to be hired again, which consequently puts her family at risk. After realizing the other women find themselves in the same situation, Sun Hee agrees to join. The union then attempts a sit down with the superiors to see that their demands are met and to show that they are serious in going against the company. They agree to sit down and discuss, only to find that the corporate officials didn't bother to show up, as they didn't take the union's threat seriously. They then stage a sit in where they would halt their work in the store, causing the supermarket to lose business and therefore get the attention of those they wish to speak with. They find success in doing so. The company even panics enough to attempt to send out stand in employees to replace the union workers, but they fight to make their point and manage to repel the stand ins. At this point, they control the store, choosing to make camp inside until their demands are met. The back and forth struggle between the workers occupying the store and the company forcibly removing them continues the remainder of the film, with media outlets even siding with the companies while the friends and family came to the aid of the workers. Slowly, the workers began to be reintegrated into the store as they have no other choice in providing to their families. However, some of them, including Sun Hee, continue to fight on in an effort to set an example for underrepresented, non regular employees and stand up to businesses who try and take advantage of their workforce. Historical background. While there are many issues addressed during various points of the plot, the major cause for concern has to do with economic inequality that we see taking place in the film, which happens to be indicative of the modern Korean labor market. The events taking place in the film were largely inspired by an incident that took place in 2007 between workers of a supermarket and the Eland Group conglomerate for unfair termination of the workers' contracts. The the roots of these related issues can be traced back to the Asian financial crisis that took place back in 1997. Korea was essentially going bankrupt, and in order to save the economy, they brought in help from the International Monetary Fund, aka the IMF. As a part of this deal, a new structure for employment was used in the country where one would either be considered a regular or non regular employee. In simple terms, consider a regular employee as someone who is locked into the job for the foreseeable future, while a non regular employee is someone brought in on a fixed contract, as in no one is sure what will happen once the contract reaches its end. From the film, supermarket employees, such as the clerks and cleaners, are considered to be non regular. We hear them say how they're on a contract and how they had worked previous jobs before, indicating that they had reached the end of their previous contract and were likely let go or fired. As you may figure, the standard of living for someone considered to be a regular employee is much higher than their non regular counterparts. Regular workers receive higher wages, social insurance coverage, and have a high degree of job security, while non regulars work for low wages and work in more precarious jobs. From the film, we come to understand that it's incredibly difficult to achieve the status of a regular worker if one has worked as a non regular. The conflict that occurs is a result of this, as the women working for the supermarket are considered to be expendable by the corporate officials, who go as far as completely violating the workers' contracts in an effort to save the costs of granting them their agreed upon terms. According to policies surrounding the Korean labor market, companies are almost encouraged to perform this sort of thing. Companies are held more accountable when it comes to meeting the terms of employment for a regular employee. Surveys conducted by the government showed that employers tend to hire non regular workers to ensure flexibility if the market were to fluctuate, which would lead towards laying off their workforce. If the employer finds themselves having to dismiss a regular employee, then they have to cough up expenses that go along with it. These regular employees are protected by labor laws, the court system, social customs, traditional business practices, and recognized labor unions, all of which are few and far between for non regular workers, which makes them a more profitable option. Once a non regular worker has reached the end of their agreement, it's typically off to the next job available. As per a law enacted in 2007, their non regular contracts are limited to 2 years, which at the conclusion requires they be promoted. However, the law doesn't cover terminating the contract prematurely. Therefore, these individuals are rarely able to make the case for the company to continue employing them, such as we saw in the film. Aside from this, it's fairly difficult for non regular workers to have any demands at all. Any sort of quarrel employees may have is often not worth dealing with to their superiors. For instance, any demand for a raise or benefits will just result in them being fired and replaced by someone who doesn't complain. The environment these non regular workers find themselves in is extremely unforgiving, regardless of life circumstances, whether they are ill, busy with childbirth, experience a death in the family, all of which are instances that are considered to be genuine reasons for job absence, but are unaffordable to working class Koreans. What I've learned: the environment these non regular workers find themselves in is ruthless. It makes living day to day a constant struggle. The jobs they perform are not the most appealing, and for the most part, there isn't much of a choice when it comes to it. They work long hours for not so great pay rates, and in many cases, like we've witnessed in the film, companies and managers can even get away with not paying them for overtime, despite making them work overtime. The position these workers find themselves in is riddled with pressure and takes its toll physically and emotionally. While it's not easy for anyone in this situation, the film tends to direct its focus towards the impact it has on female workers, who account for a large portion of the overall non regular employee count nationally in Korea. In many cases, like we saw with the character Haimi, women may obtain regular status at one point in their careers, but once circumstances like childbirth occur, they often lose their status and find it difficult to gain back. Having children, especially if they happen to be an only parent, creates a point of leverage against them, as they must provide for their families despite what they may put up with. The system plays into the hands of the employer and makes it to where many women, young adults, and seniors are being taken advantage of and their livelihoods tampered with, all in the name of preserving profit.